Scientists keep a close watch.
Experts say COP26 may be the world's last best chance to address the climate crisis.
That desperate hope is why the world is looking to you.
A report published by the UN in August called a Code Red for Humanity, showing the world is warming faster than previously thought.
We are digging our own graves. Enough of treating nature like a toilet. Enough of burning and drilling and mining our way deeper.
Despite leaders from China and Russia skipping the conference, negotiations will proceed with a goal to produce a plan to rapidly decarbonize the planet.
If we fail, they will not forgive us.
But there is skepticism of promises versus action. 6 G20 countries, including the U.S., never met their targets to cut greenhouse emissions under the 2015 Paris Agreement. President Joe Biden vowing the U.S. will lead the world.
Let this be the moment that we answer history's call.
The White House set to launch a long-term climate strategy to get to net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. As Biden touts climate change measures and his ambitious legislative agenda, currently inching forward on Capitol Hill.
My administration is working overtime to show that our climate commitment is action, not words.
In Washington, Isabel Rosales.
It's called the Venice of Africa, but a coastal town in Senegal is paying a big price for the climate crisis. See just how global warming is affecting the people there.
The fishermen's lives have always been tough here in San Luis in northern Senegal, fighting for survival on the harsh Atlantic Ocean. Now, because of climate change, the sea that has always provided for their livelihood is destroying their existence. Sheikh Zar and his family live in what's left of their house, half destroyed by a storm surge, knowing full well the rest of the building could be washed away any time. We don't have anywhere to go, he says. If we had the means, we would move. Where we are living is not safe. We are powerless. Because of its geography, San Luis is known as the Venice of Africa, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, once the capital of Senegal, now facing attrition due to the global climate emergency as erosion takes its toll on the historic buildings and the people dwelling in them.
Fishing is a profession that spans generations here in San Luis, but thousands of fishermen and their families have already been displaced by global warming as rising sea levels have destroyed many houses here on the coastline.
There is nothing left of where fisherman Abdoulaye Touré's house once stood. He says many who lost their homes have become climate refugees. There are a lot of young people who have already fled to Spain because they are homeless, he says. They have lost their jobs. Many of them are going. Others have had to move to this tent camp miles away from the ocean, living in poverty with little hope for improvement. Rising sea levels are a threat to coastal areas around the world, already causing an increase in severe flash flooding and storm surges, like in the New York and New Jersey area after Hurricane Ida in September. The world needs to act fast or risk having to completely abandon some coastal regions in the future, especially in the U.S., says climate scientist Anders Lieberman.
The entire east coast of the U.S., because of changes in the ocean currents, sea level is rising twice as fast at the east coast of the U.S. than globally.
What is a dangerous projection for the world is already grim reality here in Senegal, where the ocean that has defined the lives in this community for so long is now drifting them into an uncertain future.
And Supreme Court justices are hearing arguments challenging a Texas law that bans abortions after about 6 weeks of pregnancy. At issue, it is not the right to an abortion, but the structure of the Texas law that shields it from federal court review. Natalie Brand reports from the U.S. Supreme Court.
Abortion is health care. Health care is the right. The new Texas abortion law takes center stage before the Supreme Court as justices hear 2 challenges to the most restrictive abortion law in the nation.
The interest of the United States here is the sovereign interest in ensuring that states cannot flout the supremacy of federal law by enacting a law that's clearly unconstitutional.
The focus of today's arguments is over who can be sued to challenge the law. not whether Roe v. Wade should be overturned. The Texas legislation bans abortions after a heartbeat is detected, which can be as early as 6 weeks. Instead of state officials enforcing the law, private citizens can file civil lawsuits with penalties of at least $10,000 for anyone violating the law. The justices agreed to hear oral arguments about the legal questions raised by the Texas abortion law on an expedited basis. In September, they rejected an emergency appeal to block the law in a 5-4 decision. Many conservative-leaning states across the country are now passing abortion restrictions. It's part of a deliberate effort to get the issue of abortion before the newly conservative Supreme Court, with 6 conservative justices, including 3 appointed by former President Trump. Mississippi's law will be the first to be argued exactly 1 month from today. That law bans abortions at 15 weeks and is a direct challenge to Roe v. Wade. Natalie Brent, CBS News, Washington.
Marina del Pilar Avila, is now officially the new governor of Baja California, Mexico. She is now the first ever female governor of the state. Her term runs for 6 years.
To the government of California, we have the commitment to continue working in communication and coordination to improve development and the quality of life for residents of both borders. In security, we know that there is nothing more the residents of Baja California want. That's security, so we will work every day to reduce crime rates and prevent crime with the creation of the Secretary of Citizen Security.
Del Pilar was previously the mayor of Mexicali. She says she will not stand for any corruption or people taking advantage of public services while she's in office.